We are live.
Right.
All right, welcome. Good evening, everyone, to the special board meeting for the Weisburn Unified School District. I'd like to call to order and adopt the agenda. Could I have a motion?
A motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, or do we have to do a roll call, Wendy?
Roll call, Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Kaneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. All right. A pledge of allegiance. Dr. Harbeck, would you like to lead us?
Please put your hand on your heart and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
of
United States of America and
To
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Wendy, do we have any comments from the public?
Yes. Tonight I do have two public comments. The first is from John Deering. I'm a resident of Weisburn with two young children, the oldest of which is an incoming student at Weisburn Preschool. We are thrilled to know that Weisburn is accommodating the growing demand for preschool locally. Thank you to the district and the board for putting us on this path. As we navigate the uncertainty due to the pandemic, I can assure you that there's strong overall demand locally for sending kids to on-site preschool. With Weisburn Preschool being fee supported, just like any other preschool, parents are going to put their money wherever they can find a preschool that's open with on-site instruction and care. And there are already several locally that have reopened. So if Weisburn Preschool doesn't reopen, I think you'll be at risk of having many kids move to a different school, potentially for the rest of the school year, which means Weisburn will lose out on this revenue and also the ability to keep the teachers and staff employed. Reopening our schools is vital for working families and putting us on the path to economic recovery and stability. Without our schools open, parents are forced to sacrifice both their job performance and their child's development. Virtual learning is simply not a substitute for in-person learning. COVID is forcing us to adapt, and we must recognize it is necessary to play the long game. There are no assurances on anything. A vaccinated population and herd immunity could be at least 2 years away. I can't imagine anyone expects us to close schools this long. So instead, we must manage the risks, invest in safe and clean learning environments and workplaces, and designate all teachers and staff as essential workers. Thank you for your time. The next is Jenna Bowler. Thank you to the board for continuing to meet frequently in the fast evolving situation of the pandemic we're facing. I am submitting a comment to share my thoughts across a few key areas. 1, Facilities Master Plan. Thank you to all from the Facilities Master Planning Committee who dedicated time to plan for the long-term future of our school district. I'm excited to see both a central preschool and language immersion school on the plans, both of which will help bring much needed services to the residents and students within Weisburn. I'm looking forward to seeing how these plans evolve and hope both can be adopted. With regards to full day preschool, my oldest daughter was able to attend the WCDC full day program for 2 years and entered kindergarten with a built-in social network and exceeded the standards to enter school. With regards to language immersion, this is of growing importance and a basic part of education in many countries, as we are now in a global economy. While we were able to launch a Mandarin language after-school program last year, it would be great to further progress the district's ability to provide students with foreign language education and cultural knowledge in an equitable fashion. 2, reopening of schools. I want to thank the Weisburn Reopening Planning Committee for diligently planning for the eventual reopening of schools. I realize the situation we're in continues to evolve, and I was happy to hear several board members prioritize the health and safety for our students, staff, and community. While it is tough to keep students home, the long-term effects of this virus are still being discovered. And while we know there are long-term effects for viruses like HIV, chickenpox, herpes, and more, we unfortunately do not know enough about COVID to say that kids, staff, and teachers who may become infected while on campus will get over it. Thank you for your focus and diligence on developing a path forward during these uncertain times. I'm excited to see the innovation our unfortunate situation will drive in teaching and education. 3, advancing racial justice and equity in education. While I know you have your hands full planning for the pandemic and long-range facilities, I wanted to also make a request that the staff and administrators consider how history is being taught in our district. As the movement for racial justice continues in our country, I realize my educational upbringing left out and glossed over important elements of American history. As teachers plan lessons this year, I would really appreciate some consideration into the types of history lessons taught and an effort to represent multiple voices and viewpoints.
That's all. Thank you very much, Wendy. All right, before we go from the board, I'd like to go to the superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mora. I hope everyone can hear me. I was having some speaker issues. Am I good?
Yes.
Everybody can hear me? Okay. Sorry, I just want to take a moment to share with the board and the public some of the latest developments regarding schools reopening. As many of you know, last Friday, the governor directed all schools and counties on the monitoring list in California to be closed until the county was off the list for at least 14 days. I've been in contact with local health officials who are cautiously optimistic that with physical distancing and other safety protocols, schools in LA County will reopen. The big question right now is when. Also, I want to share that sort of buried in the governor's order was a waiver for elementary school students in grades TK through 6. And so that's come up in some conversations I've had with parents and community members over the last few days. This waiver will be available for districts to apply for in the coming days and has a very strict set of guidelines as to what would be necessary for the county and the state to grant such a waiver. Given the current situation in LA County, the most impacted county in the state, the likelihood of such a waiver in the short term is unlikely. However, as we explore the option, we may consider applying for the waiver, as it would be necessary to bring even small groups of students to school for intervention, for social emotional support, mental health support, special education services, and for other programs that will truly benefit our students. I look forward to continuing to explore our options related to the waiver and to provide the board with any updates as I receive them. We would work closely with our WFA and CSEA partners and our parent and community groups as we move through this. That said, I will recommend to the board today that we begin the 2020 and 2021 school year distance learning for an estimated 1 semester. That would end, I believe, on January 22nd. Of course, we will continue to monitor the situation and make any other recommendations accordingly, in the hopes that things do get better. It is a hope for all of us in Wiseburn, Wiseburn community, our teaching staff, our staff, support staff, that we bring our students back to school as soon as possible. So that is really, really important to us. It's something that we want to do. And with that being said, I do want to share a couple documents I've shared throughout the planning phase, and this will be the third time I'll share them, I think, publicly, but I do think it's important. So if I can share my screen, just bear with me. All right. So the first one is the 3 models of, and hopefully everybody could see the screen, the 3 models of teaching and learning, operational definitions. And yet another change to this, and hopefully the last change as we start kind of operationalizing this finally. So we did last time, I believe I put on this slide, instead of distance learning, it indicated it as remote learning. And in some conversations with cabinet, also in conversations with community members, and families, virtual learning, virtual learning. Virtual learning does have a connotation that everything's online. And we know there's some concern that everything being online is not necessarily the best practice for teaching and learning for our students, that there will be some distance learning that happens via paper, via other forms of learning. So we're going to refer to it as distance learning instead of virtual learning. So that's any type of learning that happens obviously outside of the classroom. The second is hybrid learning, and this is teaching and learning that includes a combination of in-person and then distance and or some form of virtual learning. And then finally, in-person learning, which we're going to define as teaching and learning that occurs in person at the physical school sites 100% of the time.
So, okay, So the middle box uses the term virtual learning, in-person and virtual learning.
Yes, and
Is that virtual learning the same as the distance learning in the box above?
that is a superintendent mistake that will be corrected to say distance learning. So we will get this right as we publish it though. And as it goes on our website in the next day or two, it'll say distance learning. Any reference to virtual learning would just be potentially a part of distance learning. So I'm sorry for that confusion. That is
Okay.
a superintendent mistake.
Okay, thanks.
All right. And then the second document I'd like to share is, and again, this is a draft. And so we're still meaning that we're going to finalize it and put it on our website. So there may be some, I guess we would call it, we may change the way it looks a little bit, but sorry, so take me a second here to share the screen. It's not letting me share it. Okay, bear with me. And it's called the staged approach. Can you see the staged approach here? Does it? Okay, yes. The staged approach for reopening. And again, this is our spectrum of distance learning to face-to-face learning or in-person learning. And what we're asking the board to consider today is adopting a staged approach just due to the fact that we're in a very fluid situation, dynamic situation that's changing a lot. And thank you to the RAP team, our community groups that have come together to help us identify needs as we went through the pandemic and we're planning for this year. We did identify 5 stages to the best of our ability, again, with the idea that if we need to go back to the table and discuss or change or alter, we could, but this we want to operationalize at least for now. So moving from left to right, you see total distance learning, and then obviously far right is face-to-face. Stage 1 is a 3 cohort model. So it's a third of the students, 3 hours, 1 day per week. And this could be a case where if we were able to obtain a waiver and bring in students that may need some intervention support, et cetera, could come in for that short period of time. Again, we wouldn't need a waiver at any point at this point in the pandemic to bring any students onto campus. And so this could be a case where a waiver would allow us to bring in students in thirds for 3 hours. Stage 2 is a 2 cohort model, and that's where we start breaking it in half, 13 to 16 students, 3 hours a day, 1 day per week. Stage 3, here is 2 cohorts, again, 13 to 16. And if you notice, the boldface that I've shared before is the change from the previous stage. So it goes from 3 cohorts in stage 1 to 2 cohorts in stage 2. We stay with 2 cohorts in stage 3, but we're adding a day. So now we're doing 2 days. And then in stage 4, it's going full day. So we would say, 5 to 6 hours a day, again, 2 cohorts. And stage 5 is all students. As we're preparing, hopefully for a full return, we'd have all students full day, a couple days a week. And then what would be our normal schedule beyond that. I do want to note that all of the estimated class sizes here are subject to change based on actual enrollment. We don't have those numbers yet. And also these numbers reflect upper elementary, middle school more than primary grades. So in TK to 3 classrooms, we will have an estimated potentially 8 students in stage 1 and then 12 students in stages 2 and 4, 2 through 4, sorry, depending on the circumstances and on our enrollment numbers. So, with that, I do want to share that also, Mr. Mora, childcare is a major concern. I will touch on that a little bit later in my comments. So I think at this point, if we want to go to the next step, I can share the rest of this in my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers.
Can I ask Blake one question?
Sure.
Okay, Blake, you gave dates for the first semester and I didn't hear those dates properly. Could you repeat those dates for the opening of school to the first semester?
Sure, and we're gonna actually send out a message here in the next day or two as well, probably later this evening. But the start of the semester, September 1, and we're still tracking at a September 1 start date. And then January 22nd is the end of the first semester at the middle school. So we're going to use that as the date, as our kind of target date for the end, for recommended end to the distance learning model.
Thank you. So the idea would be that we would announce distance learning and stick with it for the first semester.
We would hope that this would give parents a chance to plan for the long term.
Right.
But yeah, our hope would be, honestly, that we could come back sooner, should things happen and we find cures and treatments and so forth. But yes, this would allow parents to plan for this.
Okay, good. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
And Blake, I have a quick question too, Israel. Regarding the coming back to school or the distance learning model, I presume that would be the same for preschool and TK-8? So we would be bringing back everyone, full distance learning model and not having, for example, preschool, or we would be offering preschool or no?
So
What-
I'm sorry. Preschool is actually under different guidelines, Roger. So preschool is lumped into what we call early childhood education. And it's considered an essential function. It's part of childcare. So preschool is not bound by the governor's order or by the health order. So we could bring back preschool in person sooner, as the board would direct. This is strictly related to TK through grade 12 or 8, for our students.
And we're still studying the model of preschool, right? You're not going to be bringing forth a recommendation today. That will be for a different day.
That's correct.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on from the board, Dr. Goldman.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mora. Thank you for the comments from the public and for the concern in the public. One of the reasons I've been somewhat adamant about having these additional meetings is because it's been said people fear change, but the reality is, I believe, and research shows, people actually fear the uncertainty of change. So the question is, can we do whatever we can in this very uncertain time to give people some more certainty, which is why I'm glad we're having this meeting tonight and why I believe we will, on our agenda is the distance learning program first semester for us to speak on and vote on this evening. Child care is to be coming. I applaud the cabinet for their work here. We will know more about that as soon as we can, and just know that we are wanting to all bring kids back as soon as we can. Safety first. We can't under the current governor guidelines anyway, but we do want to do what we can to bring certainty to our community and are doing best to do that. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Ms. Kaneda?
Thanks, Israel. As we always say in our meetings, and this is heartfelt, thanks to our staff for the creativity and the consistent listening and application of these many and fast changing rules for how that regulate our community, especially our education community. I think as a member of the community, not just as a member of the board and our school community, but just as a person, it's amazing to even try to understand what the rules actually are for walking outside your home. And I think the rules for managing schools are certainly more complex and probably more important. And safety is our main concern. So I appreciate everybody's the dedication to knowing what the rules are and staying constant with them, staying consistent. None of us are happy with this. To say that we're happy with this, to say that this is how we think education should be run, of course not. But we're not happy with being ill or having our family or anybody else ill either. So we do the best we can. And I think I just want to say that I'm really proud of our community. I'm proud of our staff, proud of our team for marching forward with the guidelines, sticking to the guidelines, and being within those guidelines, being creative and supportive. So thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Banuelos?
Thank you, Mr. Mora. I wanted to just have a few comments here. I wanted to thank all of our administration and staff really for putting so much energy and dedication and time spent with regards to figuring out, as Ms. Kaneda is saying, what is really the landscape that we're dealing with, because it keeps changing on us, which is probably one of the biggest challenges, because when you have a moving landscape, you can't really anchor to develop a plan to move forward. So with that said, I would also like to thank our community and our parents for being patient with us as well, because I know you want answers for what to do with your children and students. We're certainly trying to provide those answers. And as we know more, then we can develop more of the plans so that we can move forward. It's like we said, it's a changing landscape, but I think we know more today. And that's why we have this special meeting. Thank you, Dr. Goldman, for recommending that we do have this special meeting. I think it did give us a little bit more time for us to see some of the recommendations from the governor and also from the Center for Disease Control, so that we can have this item on the agenda. So having that extra little bit of time so that we can make a more comprehensive and safe decision, I think it's definitely a value added. So thank you to everyone. Look forward to our conversation here in the next couple of items. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
I think my colleagues, Dr. Goldman, Joanne, and Roger covered it well. I don't think I have anything further to add. Also, a big thank you to all the staff and administration for their hard work and effort as we go back and forth. And I think now we're going to be focused on our efforts on distance learning as a result of the governor's order. So I think that's where we need to focus as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Yeah, I'd just like to repeat that, we're here for our students to do the best we can for them, and we want everyone to be safe. We want to thank the community for all their comments, and we will continue to take those comments and listen and consider them. And also thank you to the administration for all your hard work. Dr. Silvers and the team have really put in a lot of energy and time and hard effort to come up with options, and we appreciate that very much. So I know this is difficult times for everyone, and so we've got to keep it as positive as we can and keep moving forward. And we will continue to look for ways to bring that first some of the students to campus, and then hopefully eventually all of them. So we're very much looking forward to that. Okay, thank you. All right, from our chief business official, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Just one comment tonight. As previously shared with the board, Cabinet is discussing how best to invest the federal funds we're expected to receive in response to COVID-19. We're expecting to receive approximately $1.7 million in one-time funds, of which about $1.2 million need to be spent prior to December 30th of this year. We want to invest these funds judiciously so that they are spent wisely and in a strategic manner. We will be coming back to the board with our spending plan on how best to spend these funds and in response to our greatest needs. So that should be coming in the next meeting or two. That's all.
Thank you. Nothing further?
Question, if I may, Israel, just a question for Mr. Wilson. Do we know, is there any movement on that date in December? It seems to be as judicious as we can. Having to rush to spend defies that. We're getting conflicting messaging here. Not from you.
The only thing that I'm hearing is sorry, but the only thing I'm hearing is there's a lot of advocacy pressing for those funds to be extended out, and maybe that will be included in some trailer bill language that should hopefully will be forthcoming, but no concrete movement as of yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. From the Director of Student Support Services, Dr. Dougal.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As we are looking to go into a distance learning model, we have been working with our service providers to ensure that services for our special ed students will continue and what that will look like. And so we are focusing on how we can provide those services, and knowing that we do have the opportunity for a waiver, working collaboratively, not just with our own service providers, but also with local districts and collaborating around best practices of how we can continue those services. More importantly, looking at guidance, training, and support for our staff, especially our paraprofessionals, on how they may also continue supporting our students during this time. And finally, I'm excited to announce that I will be hosting a virtual kind of meet and greet with parents, hopefully in the first and second weeks of August. So be on the lookout so we can chat more about how we can better support our students, and so I can get to know better the needs of parents and our students as we look to kick off the school year on September 1st. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dugo. From the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Harback.
Sorry about that. Thank you, President Mora. Wendy, do you want to put up the slides? I'm just going to provide a 4-slide overview of our progress tonight in identifying instructional resources to support our students and educators in all learning environments, but specifically full distance, hybrid, and also 100% face-to-face. You want to go ahead, Wendy? So we always focus on the first and foremost line of importance, that is continuity of learning. We've set a goal to afford equity for all students in terms of curriculum that is supportive of teacher instruction during distance learning. And there are the 3 models: distance, hybrid, and in-person. So just to give you a progress report, we did start this work back in April when we realized that things may not return to normal as quickly as we had hoped. We began reaching out to vendors, talking to different school districts and site administrators about what was going on with them, piloting one of our programs during summer. In July, we went a little deeper. We were able to get all our demo accounts and some surveys together, and we provided that to all of our TK through 8 staff. So our teachers stepped up. They volunteered their time on their own to go in and look at these programs as best we could with the demo accounts and complete these surveys. We've also had ongoing guiding coalition and principal meetings. We have had 2 so far with about 26 individuals attending from our guiding coalitions. And I want to just remind everyone, guiding coalitions are instructional leadership teams at each site, teams of teachers. So along with their principals, we've been able to narrow our options and also to focus on our differing grade levels. These meetings were first by site, and then we moved to grade spans, TK2 being very different from our 3-5, and again, very different from our 6-8 needs. So we focused on just really what students need. We're coming back together on the 28th, and hopefully after that meeting, we'll be able to bring a recommendation to our school board for an adoption of curriculum that will support our distance learning, hybrid, and face-to-face instruction over the next year. In August, we're going to go ahead and establish that curriculum with implementation plans. We're going to identify our baseline assessments, how we're going to communicate all of this to our families, and then again, look at our professional learning needs with program use, distance learning strategies, and looking at data really to understand our students before they come to us. So we know we support them in these transition between grade levels. Okay, Wendy, you want to go? So just to give you a little overview, TK through 5 had over 20 programs we looked at initially. We looked at both comprehensive curriculum and supplemental curriculum programs, not sure what our staff would need. There are just some names of products that we narrowed it down to. For 6 through 8, just over about 18 programs, again, comprehensive and supplemental. And there you'll see Arizona State University and some other programs that we're looking at. Some other considerations that we've been also investigating are some digital tools for our teachers to use online for student engagement and some professional development opportunities as we move forward with distance learning. And just the last slide, I just want to point out that when we looked at these programs, we really did focus on engagement and impact with our students. So looking at how are our critical skills and knowledge going to be leveraged with our students, and how are we going to look at their unfinished learning perhaps from last year and some gaps. Adaptation to our existing scopes and curriculum that are so impactful. How are we going to monitor and assess and provide feedback to our families and students? How are we going to engage them over a long period of time if we remain closed? And also, how do we provide our families with ongoing information so they can support their students at home? So I guess I want to close tonight by assuring the school board, first of all, that our teachers are all in. They have worked very hard on this process, great collaborative conversations about instruction, about our students, and about so many needs going on for our kids and their families that we know we need to address and that we will address. So I just want to assure the board that we will be prepared in September to launch a full distance learning program, also hybrid, and that we'll be able to bridge all the way back to face-to-face when the time comes. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harbeck. Excellent. All right. From the superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
Sorry, thank you again, Mr. Mora. I do want to reiterate a couple points. You know, first is we're sort of confronted here with the distance learning model. It is somebody else's decision, so this isn't something that we necessarily made. You know, as a governing board, it came from the governor. It came due to the current state of the virus in Los Angeles County and health orders and so forth. But I do want to reiterate and reinforce what Dr. Harbeck shared, is that we've always been planning for a distance learning model. We knew that there were going to be some students who either who would choose not to come back to school because comfort level of being around the virus in the midst of a pandemic. We also knew that there would be some students that couldn't due to underlying health concerns and health conditions, that they wouldn't be able to come back, and that we would need to have 2 tracks at one point, a full distance learning track and a hybrid track. So this is not something that's new, that all of a sudden with the governor's announcement on Friday, we simply dove into what can we do to handle a distance learning model. It's something that's been discussed. It's been, as you see, the tons of programs that Eileen and her team have looked at, that our staff has looked at, our teachers, teacher leadership, et cetera. So I just wanted to reinforce that. Also, I want to talk a little bit about special education and reinforce what Dr. Dougal shared as well, is that we understand there's lots of questions and lots of concerns, and we want to deliver the best services to our students with special needs. We're committed to delivering those services to our students. And we understand that it's very important that we find a way, that it's important that we find a way to provide inclusive instructional practices for our students with special needs. We believe in teaching the whole child, and we want to support that. So I just want to share with families that despite the fact that we don't have an answer yet, we will get those answers and we'll be able to share. Also, I want to share that childcare is a major concern for many of our families. Again, another thing we don't have an answer for yet, preschool and childcare. But we are working very hard on it. I know Dr. Dougal, Dr. Harbeck, myself, Mr. Wilson, et cetera, have been working really hard to try and craft a plan that could work. And again, we'd have to bring that back to the board at one point for consideration. But as we go through this process, communication to the board and to our families is going to be extremely important. And how we communicate information is really, I think that's the centerpiece. And so hopefully the board and the public has seen that we've made some efforts to improve our communication. We've been sending out more regular communications. And we've been gathering information from our community and trying to respond to those questions and inquiries as needed. We have updated our website, and I'm going to share that here in a second. And a couple statistics I want to share. So we do have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and this has come out in some of our messages. And I don't know that I've been clear enough in maybe some of my share outs here, but currently our Facebook page, I believe just a few weeks ago, only had about 20 something followers. And to date, we have now 285 followers on our Facebook page. I don't have the number that we started at Instagram, but I do have our number now, which is almost 800 followers on Instagram. So we're trying to find different ways to get this information out. We also don't want to inundate families, and I know this was really important to the board, with very long narratives in email messages. So we want to be able to point our families to our website. And so again, we have updated our website. So I'm going to just take a quick moment here to share some of the sort of the latest and greatest to our website, just so that the board and our families could see some of the work that's been done. So if you see our website here, when you go to resources on our website, you could see that there's a page now called COVID-19 resources, and we want families to be able to go to this website. Hopefully it works here, yeah. And we will put, when we have a lot of information, we'll try and do small, short emails to families, but direct them to this website so that they can gather resources. And you can see it could be anything from LA County Department of Public Health, the orders there, Department of Health, California Department of Health, CDC and the World Health Organization, as well as any messages or updates from the district that we've sent out. And so we also have links here to the school board meetings, especially as we are now knowing we're discussing a lot of these COVID updates. So I just wanted to share that we're looking, and this is a work in progress. We do hope that as we roll out the school year, that our communications, is more robust than it was a year ago. And certainly I want to thank the team. We have Jason Neely, who's been working on our website, and really behind the scenes, Erica Quarter, who's been helping support our communications program. So for both of them, I thank them for the work that they've done on this, and for the rest of the staff too. So I believe that's it for me, Mr. Mora. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Awesome.
Silvers. Go ahead, Joanne.
Can I make a comment? I wanted to really thank Dr. Dugal and Dr. Harbeck for, in particular, the people side, the human side of their planning going forward. Because one of the things that made the distance learning sort of workable when it happened in March, when it started, was that our teachers and our staff already knew the students. They already knew the parents. They already knew the students that were in their classes. They already knew how those students performed, how they learned, and how to reach those students. They already knew that. They knew the parents. They knew how to communicate with both the families and the students. We're starting a new school year without that prior knowledge, and we're starting a new school year with distance learning without that prior knowledge. So I really appreciate what Dr. Dugal said about meeting with having sort of like an open house forum, if you will, ahead of time. What Dr. Harbeck was talking about, ways that our teachers can meet their students and the students can meet the teachers, even though it's distance learning, that we set up a personal relationship with our students and our families. And that is so key. And I really want to commend them for approaching the planning with those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaneda. All right, moving on to action items. 5.1 is to consider the Weisburn Unified School District's operational definitions of teaching and learning and the staged approach to reopening schools for the 2021 school year. Need a motion to adopt?
You have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
I'll
Second.
second.
Thank you, Ms. Kaneda. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, Wendy, would you like to call a question?
Yes, please. Mr. Banuelos?
He's on mute. Roger?
You can give us a thumbs up. That would work. There you go.
I'm here. I actually have a question, but unfortunately I was on mute. I'd like to clarify the model that we are approving, because there's multiple models listed on the chart that's presented. Is the motion to approve, as Dr. Silvers recommended earlier, with a 100% distance learning for the first semester of the 2020-21 school year?
I think that's the next item, Roger.
Motion, that's the next item, Roger. We're approving the model with the different stages.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute too. I was gonna, and I don't know, Wendy, if you could bring it up just quickly, if you could just bring up that attachment. The idea, Roger, was just that we have these operational definitions, just do yeah, there you go, staged approach. So that way, as we start discussing where we are, depending on the state of the pandemic, and as we start bringing students back, we always have this document to go back to, and the board can then deliberate on whether we would do the stage 2, stage 3. We provide any type of information that we have from the county or from the state or the governor or anything like that, that we could at least know, and our families know, when we're talking stage 1 through 5, that we have those in play.
I understand now. The first item is the definition, so we have a common nomenclature to move forward with. I understand. Okay, so in that case, Wendy, my vote is aye.
Thank you. Dr. Goldman?
Yes, and just a point of clarity to help everybody understand, it's stages 1 through 5. However, really the 0 stage is distance learning, and effectively what would be stage 6 is full back in the classroom in a normal scenario. So I just want to make sure that the community understood that. Aye.
Ms. Kaneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, moving to 5.2, adopt instructional model to start of the 2021 school year. And I'll read the recommendation. It is recommended the board adopt a distance learning instructional model to begin the 2021 school year as recommended by the superintendent. Can I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Ms. Kaneda. Second?
A second and a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Go ahead.
The comment is that the governor has mandated that districts, counties that are on the monitoring or watch list are effectively mandated not to go with distance learning. I think it is relevant to share that not only is Los Angeles County on the watch list, we are the epicenter of the state in terms of all the counties having the highest rate of COVID infection per capita. So I think this is a very appropriate. I will also share that I've not seen a single education health official suggest that the fall will bring about significant reduction, only concern for further. So I think this is very prudent to give our parents the opportunity to prepare and know that this is the model for the first semester. So I'm in strong support here.
Okay. We lost your last sentence there, Neil. I don't know if you want to repeat it.
Just that I'm glad we're giving parents some information to make their decision, to know what the plans are, and I'm in strong support of this to give everybody a sense of understanding of what the plan is.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Does anyone else have a comment? All right, Wendy, would you call the question, please?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Moore,
Panuelos.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, could I just want to clarify too, if it's recommended the board adopt a distance learning model to begin 2020, 2021. In the public comment, it's sharing though that it would be to start that and then and then do that for the whole first semester. And I know Neil shared that. And if you see the dates here, just to point it out, September 1 is the start of the school year. And then January 22nd is the end of the first semester. So the reality is to start that and to continue it through the first semester, considering the circumstances we're in right now.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. All right, Wendy.
Mr. Panuelos,
I am in full support of starting the school year in this model. Thank you.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Kaneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that's it for this meeting. Is that correct, Dr. Silvers?
Yes, that is. And then I think we have one closed item agenda, one closed item. Yes.
So if we could take a 10-minute and then, or would you guys rather do 15 and start at 7 o'clock? Anybody?
7 sounds good.
I'd rather
7
go-
o'clock it is? All
I'd
right, thank
rather
you,
get started
everybody.
sooner, Israel, if we can. We've got a Dodger game that I gotta watch.
It's raining
T-Boy.
in Washington DC, so they had to stop.
Oh, no.
I know.
Bummer. All right, 7 o'clock it is, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.